Hi, I'm Rich Torrey. Welcome to another Level Up Cartooning. All you ever need to follow along with me is a pencil and paper. It doesn't get any easier than that, right? Now, before we get started, make sure you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button, as it helps this channel to grow, and hit the bell so you never miss a lesson. So last week we drew from the new DreamWorks hit movie, Dog Man. And as I was searching for just the right reference images for Dog Man, I stumbled on a character who's also starring in a new movie, that being Paddington. And well, I figured, why not? Paddington, who is starring in his third movie, this one called Paddington in Peru, is the creation of children's book author Michael Bond, writing the first Paddington story, A Bear Called Paddington, in 1958, with Paddington's iconic pen and ink illustrations created by legendary illustrator Peggy Fortnum. That version of Paddington we may tackle next week, but this week we're going right to the more realistic CGI version, because, well, just because. Like with many of the subjects we tackle, one of the challenges we face is drawing somewhat simplified cartoon versions of a realistic three-dimensional CGI character. But then, that's what it's all about, rising to that challenge. The main challenge with Paddington is drawing that fur, something I've talked about before. The idea is to not draw every hair, but to draw lines that represent that fur or hair in a way that connotes softness or fluffiness. You don't want to draw that fur too stiff or too exact. While there's a direction to that fur, you want to build a little randomness in that fur to make it feel natural, but not too much randomness. That isn't good either. Here's what I've learned in teaching this over the years. Because drawing fur can be hard, we tend to press too hard at first. Resist that temptation. Ease up on the pressure. In fact, start light. And secondly, early on, we tend to overdo it. In other words, we tend to draw too much. The real trick is to know when to stop and when to leave some breathing room between hairs or tufts of fur. Do not get discouraged when this happens. By overdoing it, you're actually learning. It may happen several times before you start to recognize when to let up. Only by overdoing it do you learn how not to overdo it. So it's okay to make those mistakes. What's Jake the dog saying? Sucking at something is the first step towards being sort of good at something. Anyway, what do you say we get started drawing? For the new movie Paddington in Peru, Paddington Bear. We're going to draw Paddington step by step, giving you the secret formula to be able to draw him again and again. If you've watched any of my other videos, I normally use the character's head to figure out how big the entire character is. In this standing pose, Paddington is about 4.5 heads tall. In other words, however tall his head is, his entire body is about 4.5 of those tall, not counting the top of his hat. Alright, so what do you say we get started drawing the roadmap for Paddington? So there's our roadmap for Paddington. Now before we go on to step 2, I want to give you the layout of Paddington using simple shapes for those of you who want a screen grab. Just something to help you when you're laying out your drawing of Paddington. Okay, so now we're on to step 2. In this step, we do what I call roughing out the features. I want to remind you that until the third and final step, you want to draw as light as possible. You'll see that I use guidelines to help me to position Paddington's body and features. We don't want those guidelines in the final drawing, so you want to draw them light enough to be able to erase them easily. Alright, so let's rough out the features for Paddington. Okay, so there are the roughed out features of Paddington. So now with the roadmap done and the features roughed out, it's time for that final step. In step 3, we get to have fun. We get to draw the final details of Paddington. We don't have to guess where to put things because we've already done all the hard work figuring that out. Now would be the time to take a moment to look at your Paddington drawing while it's still lightly sketched out and fix or change things before you commit to drawing those final lines. But even as you begin those final lines, you should still be thinking about how you might improve your drawing all the way until the very end. One last note, as you draw the final line version of Paddington's fur, while it's okay to apply a little more pressure on that line, ease up on the end of each stroke. Doing so will add a little touch of softness to that tuft or hair. Again, it's something that will improve with practice. Alright, so let's draw in the details for Paddington. that's how you do it. There you have it, Paddington, from the new movie Paddington in Peru. So how do you think you did? Understand, if you've never drawn Paddington before, you cannot expect to have drawn him perfectly. You notice I don't spend time coloring Paddington during this video because I want my lesson to focus solely on the drawing process. Now you have the secret formula, the process for drawing Paddington. And with that, you can draw him again and again. And by all means, color him when you're done. I promise each time you draw him, it'll be a little better and a little easier. I also promise the more you work with me, the better you're going to get at all of your cartoon characters. So I'd love to see your drawing of Paddington. If you can, take a picture and post it on either Facebook or Instagram. And don't forget to include the hashtag #LevelUpCartooning. I hope you had as much fun as I did with this one. Remember to subscribe, and thanks for joining me. Until next time, keep drawing, my friends.